any kind of galactic ray flashes you may have experienced. So have any of you guys experienced flashes in your eyes during the mission related to galactic rays, either like while working or sleeping, just to try to speak to the difference between those and what you saw yesterday?
Yeah, 100% difference in those and what we saw yesterday. We see, I mean, I definitely see a dozen or two every night when I'm going to sleep. I can talk about those if you want, the galactic flashes, galactic cosmic ray flashes, but the impacts on at least these, what we suspect were impact flashes, were absolutely different, 100% different. And Jeremy said like half a second. I would say they were a millisecond. Like the fastest a camera shutter can open and close, that is what I saw. And I would say they were just white, bluish white, and the size of, Jeremy said size of a star. I really like that analogy from space. It was just a pinprick of light. And maybe it was a priming bias, but to me there was no doubt we were seeing it. And we were all seeing it. So it was, and we were correlating.
Great stuff, Reed. Yeah, don't need the description of the galactic ray flashes. So I guess last question for you guys on that. We definitely want that annotation. Please let us know when you have that, and we'll try to downlink it in flight. But when during the period did you see them? Because I think we heard from you like 20 minutes in that you had already seen a couple. So any timing granularity you can provide would help us find evidence from those from the ground and from LRO.
Well, I mean, I think it was just whenever we were intentionally looking for impact flashes, we were looking pretty hard. The eclipse occurred, and then we had about 5 minutes of human emotional reaction to staring at that orb floating in the vastness of space. And then right after that, we were like, oh, somebody in the cabin said, let's look for impact flashes, or I see an impact flash. And then we started looking at it, and as we were looking, we all just saw, you know, 1 or 2 or 3. Mine were, Jeremy's annotating right now, and then I will annotate on his as well. I never saw any that would have been in the Earth glow side, so I do not suspect any that I saw would be able to be correlated from a Earth-based science team.
Great feedback. So it sounds like when you guys reported multiple impact flashes, it could have been that you guys all saw the same ones occurring. Any guidance on how many total you saw?
Yeah, we didn't necessarily announce everyone out into the cabin, though. Reed and I saw 2 identical ones. He saw one before mine, and then I know I saw another one after that. So we'll try and give you the annotation and what order they came in. But just remember, this is just very rough.
That's great. Moving on, a question for Christina and any others that observed something similar. Christina suggested there may have been possible lofted dust just prior to Earthrise. Can you describe what you saw just before the Earth popped out from behind the moon? And any other crew, did you witness anything similar to what Christina is about to describe?
Hey, Kelsey. So this was during, Earthrise. I was still on Eclipse for some reason. Yes, okay. My crewmates were they didn't see it the same as I did. What I saw was when it got close, so as you know, a crescent rose, so it was kind of like 2 fangs came up, one fang and then later another fang, and then eventually the center of the smile, the crescent. And right before the center of the crescent came up to, right before the crescent was there was when I thought I saw something.
That's that's a very evocative description, Christina. Thanks. You noticed it was gray. You kind of highlighted a gray color. Did it? What was the thickness of it above the surface of the moon, and anything else you can describe about what made you think it was lofted dust?
Yeah, and to be clear, this is Earthrise, right?
A-firm Earthrise, because it's that glow from Earth that would allow that lofted dust to become highlighted against space.
Yeah, I was just making sure it wasn't right after Earth set, if that might also be a time, because the picture I'm building in my mind, I just want to make sure I'm not creating false memories. Basically, and I think this is why not everyone saw it as lofted dust, it was not tall. It was it wasn't like the corona where it came up high or anything like that. It was just a slightly different gray color right before it rose. And it was small enough to be within the fangs of the crescent. It didn't go farther than the inner part of the crescent. And it could have been an optical thing and not lofted dust, but to me it just sort of appeared, and I felt like it had a glow. I know that those different terms mean things, but I think in this case that would be the appropriate thing there, that it was potentially, in my mind, the sunlight reflecting off of the Earth and creating a little glow right before the brightest part of the crescent came over the horizon.
Exactly what we were looking for. Thank you, Christina. Similarly, on dust, we heard that Reed chose for his second crew choice target to look for suspended dust. So, Reed, did you see any glow or hints of that dust earlier that made you come back to that observation?
Negative. Just really wanted to see some, and I saw none.
Understood. Okay, for Christina and Victor, during Earth set, we heard you say that the Earth was so bright it made the moon look dark. So you all had the Earth in view during the majority of your flyby. Did you notice any time when the brightness of Earth began to change your view of the moon's brightness? And can you describe how your perception of the moon's color changed as the Earth came closer to the moon?
Yeah, absolutely. And essentially, as soon as the Earth became in the view, the easy view, where I didn't have to turn my head, when it was in what I'll call my field of view, not my field of regard, when I could just see it looking straight, the moon was already at a point where I was losing our subtle albedo differences. I think it's the angle of incidence. The angle, the sun to the moon didn't change much, but we moved to the side, so we were seeing a different angle, and the color was less apparent. Oriental had also rotated really close to the limb, so a lot of the features that I was looking at were moving away, but I think the change in lighting was due to the angle of incidence, but then when the Earth became apparent, its brightness, it was so bright. It was so bright it looked out of place. The gray of the moon and the black of space kind of seemed to go together, but then more in the dull sense, but then the vividness and brightness, the difference between an LED display and a painting, right? You can just do things with light that you can't do with paint colors. The Earth looked out of place, and it just continued to dim the albedo and color that was earlier apparent in the moon. I'm passing to Christina.
You saw me nodding vigorously back here. That wasn't just my fantastic listening skills. I was nodding to make sure. Oh, we're not on video. This whole time I've been putting on a show. I was nodding, now you know, because I agreed with everything he said. I'll add a couple thoughts that popped into my mind, which was, I think I made the comment that the moon turned into a sponge of view, the moon actually was reflecting light, and it was lit up. As soon as the Earth got close enough to be in my field of view to take them both in at the same time, exactly what Victor said, it dulled, it turned into a sponge. It's almost like it went matte, like a matte finish. And for me, so that's brightness and albedo. It also, I would say for me, got like a browner taupe color, like almost an olivey brown, kind of like the boys' pants, not like my pants, but like these pants. And whereas before, I would have said it was more like electric gray in its grayer areas. So for me, it turned more brown, but a very matte brown. I'm going to stop there. There's one more comment I'll make about when it was very close, just in case it's interesting.
Absolutely, we take that
observation. The only other thing I wanted to add to that is not scientific on lunar observations, but I think that I know myself in particular, but probably we all underestimated the amount of impact of sunlight and earth glow on cabin windows, on glare on the window structure, window frame, on the heat shield tiles coming across the cabin. That was a pretty large impact, Kelsey.
That stuck up to us here on the ground as well, Reed, and we were hearing the struggles that all those different expected illumination sources provide, but unexpected in the impact that they had. Speaking of things that had an impact on observations, Victor, we heard during your sit rep when you were in the docking window that having that orange Kapton tape in your field of view affected your color observations. That was fascinating and has a lot of impact for future Artemis missions and hardware and impacts on color. So any other comment you want to make on how your ability to perceive color on the surface was influenced or limited by other objects of color in your view? We're interested here in color rather than brightness.
Absolutely, but all the comments I made about the Earth earlier apply to this one as well. This is the thing I wanted to make sure to add, so I'm glad you asked, is that the human eye adjusting is another thing that had huge impact. Some of the colors and their patterns did not appear in the moon. The Aristarchus Plateau, the browns, the streaks that we saw there, until you stared, kind of like the impact flash. You really have to be staring. And it wasn't because of intention. It was because my eyes were adjusting. And so as soon as I would look inside the cabin, the vehicle, if those bright LEDs that were in the vehicle, or if the sun was reflecting off of a corner of the windowsill, or the bright earth in the field of view, those things would change my eye, and I'd have to wait for them to adjust again.
And I want to add, while Victor's talking about that, on the Kapton tape color, let me see if I can nod to my crewmates. But when we're looking at Earth, just a normal Earth lit up by the sun, I'm used to seeing these deep blue pictures of like Earth Day photos, Apollo 8 photos. But when we look out, the cloud cover is so bright, it is almost blindingly bright, and you really cannot make out significant detail in the Earth when we're at long distance on a sunlit Earth. So it was very interesting to me that the Earth is so bright from the clouds that it is actually hard to look at.
Hey, since we're going discussion style, like you mentioned, I'll add a couple comments on color. I didn't notice color changing my view, except maybe, like Victor said, I didn't realize it when I looked down at the PCD and back, because I do think there was a time scale there where you saw things a little differently if you just stared for a long time. And sometimes even staring out to the blackness to kind of reset and come back. So I think that is a note. We were very much reliant on PCDs for instruction, but that did cause our eyes to constantly refresh on those colors. I didn't notice necessarily a color difference, but just like a quality of observation, maybe like he was saying, like the details or the contrast. So it might have even been a night vision thing. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that. I did want to mention that when we were getting the really, really high amount of light into the windows, even the shrouded windows from the sun, the reflection on things behind the observer that are in the cabin was really strong on the window. So there's some high albedo things behind our heads, like there's a white bar, the abort sticker on the RHC, some other metal things, like we have some white bungees. I was trying to observe the dark side of the moon during the Earth set while the Earth was behind it, and I ended up asking Reed to give me some black T-shirts, and we covered all of that stuff so that the reflection was just less in the glass, and it worked so well. It basically made observing for impact flashes possible, whereas it wouldn't have been otherwise. So that's a good tip, and I would even recommend, like maybe as part of your stuff, if you have this in the future, like a black room, a dark room cloth or something to lay behind the observers. Finally, back on the question of moon color change during Earth set, the other thing that that happened, which was kind of, I think, just more in the category of like a mirage or something, even though I recognize there's no atmosphere around the moon that would cause the same things as mirages on Earth. There was definitely an effect, like when the Earth actually set, of like when it first touched the moon, it was like your eyes didn't know what to do at that boundary, and it kind of just created a lot of light in that spot. Once it got below that tangent first touch, then it got more normal, and I was able to just see the Earth and see the moon and see their contact. That's all for me. Anybody else on this question?
Thank you, Christina. And as I think I saw you notice, we did just get video a couple minutes ago, so it's nice to see you as we're talking to you. Next question is for all of you. Ohm crater was observed by all four of you, and we're interested in whether your different viewing angles resulted in how you observed Ohm. Jeremy and Reed saw it first. Were you able to see the ejecta rays, the central peak? And then Christina and Victor, you were next, and you observed Ohm later in the past. Could you resolve similar or different features than what you're about to hear from Jeremy and Reed?
The ejecta blanket for Ohm, I mean, it definitely changed as we went around the moon, but it did not change that much. It was always there. It was always fairly apparent. What is more apparent than the ejecta is the brownish gray, darker area that makes the 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock cut of the pie shape. Like that was always very apparent, and the ejecta rays just made that contrast much more apparent. But overall, Ohm did not change drastically as we went around the moon, unlike Oriental, which drastically changed as we went around the moon. And I'll keep going there. I'm kind of going to read this question, but it was later on in the orbit that I noticed the ray of Ohm, like the primary ray of Ohm that comes out of roughly the 3 o'clock position, was on the mare. And I'm not sure if I was picking that up initially in our first observations, but definitely in the latter. Did you notice that at all? No, the near side mare, yeah. Yeah, Reed says he was noticing that the whole time. That might have been more noticeable to me later on, but that would be the only delta.
Understood, Reed and Jeremy. Curious to hear Victor and Christina's thoughts after hearing you guys.
For the later observation, I was able to see into the crater wall on the east side, and the shadowing there was actually neat, so I could see layers of shadow, so that there's kind of like two faces, or maybe three. I couldn't tell because we were so far away, but I could clearly see light, then dark, then light, and so the layering within the interior crater wall on the eastern side. I was able to see the central area, and I actually thought I saw three distinct groupings of something, and I think that's in the recording, but again, I was so far away, and my eyes were quite tired from adjusting. I was wearing glasses and looking in at the PCD and then looking out the window out above the glasses, and so my eyes were really getting a workout. And they've definitely been changing. That's the other thing about the eyes too. My eyes shifted on this. I'm about to turn 50, and that just was very different than 5 years ago. But I did see interior structure, and I commented on the colors, but again, from the angle we were from the surface, everything just looked plain, but the interior floor seemed to be the same color as the surface outside to the west, but the wall seemed to be a different color, which kind of made this was the same color as the rays and I think the central lift, but I said this in my recording, and it's already becoming fuzzy, but I made some correlations between there, and I talked about looking at the Grand Canyon, where you can see different layers and know that this is the same as that, even though they're not connected. I think the interior, the floor, and the wall maybe had different color or albedo, and I don't remember which one I said in the recording.
I'll pile on with your question. We just brought up the LTP because I forgot that while I was doing this, because there was no shadows on this whatsoever, I think it was towards the end when it was just in full light and very little relief, I kept losing ohm itself. And I actually thought that there was a crater northeast of ohm that is at the center of those kind of starfish rays. There actually looked like there was a very simple and old crater there, and that is what I kind of actually went back and forth between that one and now what I see is true ohm, and I wish I would have referred back to my PCD at the time. But I think the lesson learned here is without any relief, it is very difficult to sometimes make out craters, especially here where the rays are actually offset from where the crater itself is. So you're drawn into a spot, and I am so surprised right now that there's not a little crater where those rays meet, because in my mind, there was, and that was ohm.
Hey, that reminds me of something else we talked about earlier. When reading Jeremy, we're in the windows, I remember looking out and I'd said something to you. I think that it doesn't look like purely rays. I did see the continuous feature of that east-west line, that 3 o'clock ray all the way into the near side Mare. There's some interesting something going on there. But at first, it looked to me like just two different, like a contact of two different materials coming together, or two different age materials coming together. And when we got on the far side, the far side view, where I was looking back at it, I mean the later view, it still looked like, I don't know, it sometimes didn't look like a ray. It just looked like different color material. And really the point of this is not to talk about the 3 o'clock ray and the 12 o'clock ray. It's to talk about the wedge. The wedge looks to me, if you remember my recording comment about continents, I kind of had the near side Mare continent, the middle from Ohm to Oriental, and then the Hertzsprung continent. Those colors in the wedge look like, and not they look the color of, but also the concrete kind of packedness of what's around Hertzsprung. Those look similar. So that's kind of also playing tricks on my eyes between rays and just different material, not just a ray laying on top of the material.
Thanks a lot, Victor and Christina. Wow, we're really looking forward to continuing to dive into this when you guys are back with us on Earth. We want to sign off now to get you guys over to your next activities. Before I do that, I'll just say when you're making those annotations about the impact flashes, any annotations you want to provide about the structures in the corona you saw during the eclipse, we would take those annotations. And that's it for me. It was so wonderful to talk to you over the last 2 days. Thank you again, and can't wait to see you all back here on Earth. Thanks again for what you did for science.
You guys did an extraordinary job of preparing us. We really appreciate you. Can't wait to talk more about this. This was too short. For the sunset recording, if you're looking for that, it's on PCD3, and the file name is recording, open bracket, 13, close bracket.
Copy all, integrity. Science is over and out.
Integrity Houston, we're maneuvering to the lunar obs attitude, and we'll be ready to dial for the PFC as soon as we see you online.
We copy, and can you say window for science pictures? We're a little PCD limited.
Checking. Christina, window 2.
Copy, we see it coming into view. You guys look gorgeous.
Why, thank you.